I'm Daniel, the past life regressionist, and it's time to begin.
Lift off and the clock has started.
This is Timeless Spirituality. Enjoy each of your time.
Hey everyone, welcome back for another episode of Timeless Spirituality. For this week's episode, we have fan favorite Fally Klein back for another super duper cerebral and thought-provoking conversation. And this time, no pun intended, we're talking all about time. And with time, I'm learning more and more, it's about a vantage point. It's about looking at time from a different vantage point. With that, I've learned a lot about myself just in listening back to this episode because we recorded this one, I believe it was in December of 2023. So through the editing process and just listening to it a couple times, it's given me a lot to reflect on for myself. And I guess in that process, viewing it from a different vantage point. So I just want everyone to take that into consideration with time. What if time is all about vantage point and perspective? So with all that said, if you would like to book a regression with me to discover who, when, and where you have been throughout time, you can reach me on Instagram at The Past Life Regressionist or my website, thepastliferegressionist.com. And now, it's time to begin. Fally, welcome back to the show. How are you doing today?
Thank you for having me here again. I am so excited to be here.
Fally Klein.
Yeah, this has been the highlight of my week, I told you. I've been ready for this.
I'm so excited for this conversation. This is one of those, oh yeah, so Fally doesn't know the question that I'm going to ask today. And I really don't know where it's going to go because, well, I mean, can I really plan with Fally? No, because it's going to go in so many different directions. We're going to just skip all the introductions today. Everyone, just go check out the other two episodes I've done with Fally. They're incredible, fan favorites. I mean, for real, I hear great things about those two episodes, so go check them out. You'll learn all about Fally because I don't want to waste any more time. With that said, Fally, are you ready for today's question?
I am ready. Where are we going today?
Is time linear?
Of course it isn't linear. Is this the intelligent conversation you wanted to have today? I thought this has already been explored. I mean, this is a fact. Quantum physics talks about this. Time is not linear. There's no way.
So what does that mean?
Well, first, why don't you give me a little bit of an idea of why are you asking this question?
Because I thought it would be a good jumping off point.
But what does this question mean to you? What inside of you sparked this thought that maybe time isn't linear?
I mean, other than my perception of it being linear, I think it's just something I want to explore a little bit more because, I mean, here's the difficulty that I have. As a past life regressionist, you know that our lives revolve a little more around time than, say, a PE teacher. Well, maybe that's not true because, stop. Okay, I think horrible generalization there. But I think that we're a little more exposed to time or theoretical concepts of time. And observation is all I have at this point because it is so hard to concretely prove that time is not linear. So to me, it's only theoretical at this point. And through the exploration of my own regressions, talking with the subconscious higher self, and we'll just say, etc., I don't believe that time is linear. And I think we'll get into some of those concepts, but it's hard to present it in a way anything other than just theoretical conversation because And my Zoom just shut off. Yeah, my Zoom shut off.
Yeah, I love how this happens. We're talking about time and whether it's linear, and then all of a sudden, some spirit guide is like, you cannot have this conversation, and kicked you off Zoom.
It's funny. I had a recording a few months ago where we started to talk about dimensions, and the same thing happened. It's almost as if I'm being told, don't have this conversation yet because you don't know what the hell you're talking about. So do I tempt the Wi-Fi gods?
Talking about the Wi-Fi guides, I've had this where clients have wanted sessions, and normally Zoom sessions work just fine. Probably you've done so many different sessions over Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
And I had this one client who was very dedicated to meeting her spirit guides. She wanted to go into the healing arts, and she was studying many different modalities, and she wanted help choosing which modality to focus on. And no matter what we tried, the session couldn't launch. Our Zoom kept going, my Zoom, her Zoom. And then when it finally started working, there was construction outside, nothing was happening. And finally, we just gave in to the Zoom gods. And we were like, maybe it's not the right time to have this session. She texted me about 3 or 4 days after our failed session. And she said, it's so crazy. I had come to the session wanting to know what to choose. And 3 days later, I was introduced to a whole new modality. This is the modality that I'm going with for the rest of my life. And she said, I think my spirit guides knew that I wasn't ready for the session because I hadn't yet had all the information. So I'm a fan of when the spirit guides kind of try to interrupt. Usually they're trying to tell us something. But go back to your question about time not being linear, especially in our profession.
Maybe now is not the time. No pun intended there, or pun intended. And I'll tell you why. Because one of my pet peeves is when people talk about things as fact that are not factual, or at least cannot be proven as factual. This is the way it is. This is the way it is. This is the way it is. So I want to come at it from more of a theoretical standpoint, because I feel I'm still cultivating a deeper understanding of the meaning of time. And that is that's why I'm hesitant to just outright speak about what I've observed, because I don't have a well-rounded understanding of it. So maybe this is one of those things where I should just listen and say, okay, maybe I should understand a little bit more about this before I go shooting my mouth off about what I don't fully understand. So point taken.
Got it. I actually do have some interesting perspective on time that came to me quite recently, because like you said, in our line of work, I think the way we engage with time is different. And I have definitely had the experience of time passing very differently in session. Sometimes you'll take people on this journey and they're going to past life, or it's their spirit life, right? Like before they were born, and they're in spirit world. And sometimes it'll feel like so much is happening, and on the clock, very little time is passing. There's just like this download of spiritual information and process and journeying. And it's like all of this happened in such a short window of time. And we've all had experiences like that, right? Even the English language is full of these idioms like time flies when you're having fun, right? Or wow, time was moving slowly. So I think everybody had some sort of experience where we know on some level that time is not linear. It can't really be counted in minutes and seconds and hours, right? I think that's just one way for us to all get on the same page. And you were the one who introduced me to the book, The Timekeeper by Mitch Albom. And I'm a little late to that game. That's not a new book, but I've only read it really recently because of your recommendation. And for those people who haven't read it, you probably should read it. But it really goes through this imagined history, or this imagined telling of how time was created. And interestingly enough, the book is offset by the time period of the Tower of Babel. So for people who aren't familiar with biblical legend and story, in the time of the Tower of Babel, everybody, all of creation, officially spoke the same language. We will all be able to communicate and be understood by each other. And when they created the tower, and the tower was this it was a project by mankind wanting to meet the gods. They wanted to build a tower tall enough that they could meet the gods and basically win over the gods. And the punishment from the gods were that their languages kind of broke apart. And all of a sudden, the world was speaking 70 different languages and nobody could make themselves understood by one another. That was the punishment, the divine retribution for wanting to go up against the gods, was this lack of uniformity of spirit or uniformity of language. So interesting, in the book, The Timekeeper, what happens is in this time period of Babel, is when somebody comes up with this uniformity of time. And I think that when we talk about time, what we're really saying is there's a way for all of us on the same page, because some of us experience time very differently than others. For some of us, time moves very quickly. For some of us, time is very slow. And I think that when we've developed time, as in the wristband that you wear, what we're really doing is we're trying to find a way where me and you can meet up at the same, like, we've maybe known ourselves or known each other throughout many lifetimes. And for me, this may be the first time I'm meeting you. And for you, this may be the 10th time you're meeting me, depending on where we're at in our life cycles, right? This is my first lifetime on earth, and I'm meeting you as a soul for the first time, but this is your 100th lifetime on earth, and you've already known me throughout ages and times, because time is not linear. My first life experience, maybe 2023, but maybe my second life experience is going to be in the 1500s, because maybe as my soul progresses, what I need to be learning is only available for me time period. So I feel like the time that we talk about is a way for our souls to say, hey, this is a place where we can meet up. Despite how you experience time and as I experience time, this is a way where we can meet. But I don't think time is linear. And the last time that we spoke, I had made this comment about the 10 commandments. Do you remember? That are not really commandments. And I think that I really define that. I think that creation is defined by the 10 commandments if you know how to look at them. And there's one of them, the 5th commandment, that says, and people often miss this, it says, honor your father and mother so that you can extend your days within your life. And people are very mystified by this because they think it means, well, if I respect my parents, I'm going to live a long lifetime. And then you see a lot of people who disrespect their parents and they live to a ripe old age, or people who do respect their parents and they die young. So what does this act mean? And I think that if we're looking at this from the quantum perspective and a little bit from an etymological perspective, in the Hebrew language does not have a word for honor, not the way the English language does. We tend to think that honor means respect. And in the Hebrew language, the word for honor is kavod, which has the same root as kaved, which means heavy or gravity. And the instruction in the 10 commandments is not respect your elders. It means appreciate the gravity of those that have come before you. You don't have to like them. You don't have to love them, but appreciate that you would not be here if not for everyone and everything that has come before you. And if you do, if you are able to appreciate the gravity of all of that, then the days that you are here on this earth will be extended. And it's not I don't believe it's talking about the number of days that you're going to be on earth, but I believe that you can literally expand time. I get this comment a lot because I'm fairly young. People always ask me, you've done so much in such a short amount of time. Do you have more hours in the day than anybody else does? And my answer is I don't have more hours on the wristwatch than you do, but I do feel like for me, time is much more expanded. I can probably fit more into 1 minute than other people can. And it's not because I'm running or racing. If you meet me, I've cultivated this, but a certain sense of presence. I'm not flighty. I'm not jumpy. I actually work to move a little slowly. Amazing how much actually gets done when you know that you have a way to expand time. And I think it does start with intention.
I mean, where do we even start with all that?
Well, first, let's recognize that the time gods have not interfered while I was speaking. So it sounds like they're okay with us right now.
It got a little glitchy, but I maybe that they're just being like, be warned, be warned. Maybe that's more for me. Okay, let's go back to what you said about first life compared to I think 100th life, because I understood what you were talking about. But what's perplexing to me is that concept of it being your first experience, yet you and I may have met up in 100 other lifetimes, which happened. But I may be further along, or we can swap it. That this may be my first experience. You've been around 100 more times around the block, which I don't know. I mean, may not be a badge of honor at the end of the day, but that's neither here nor there right now. But how? Like the how is the question I have of how can that be where it has already happened, yet it is happening for the first time? And so I know that is theoretical, but Fally, you have a way of just pulling things out of the ether and somehow having it make sense. So what you got?
So there's a book called The Time Traveler's Wife by Audrey Niffenegger. That book was made into a movie a couple of years back, and she describes it very well in this book. So, of course, this book is fantasy. It's about this guy, some sort of genetic glitch that causes him to wake up or suddenly disappear and find himself in another time, in another place. He always comes back. It's like a glitch. He leaves his current lifetime and then goes back in time, maybe to a time when he was younger. When he time travels, he usually time travels along his own timeline. So he's not going to ancient Egypt. He's going to something that is relevant in his own timeline. And what's really beautiful, it is a love story, this book. So what happens is there's this guy who's a time traveler, but as he time travels through his timeline, he often meets this little girl. And it turns out that this little girl grows up to be his wife. So there are times when this little girl has known him since she's about 6. And I may be misquoting because it's been a while since I read this book. And when this little girl grows up, she's had the connection with this man her whole life. Throughout this little girl's childhood, she has been visited by this man many times over. Then she's in her 20s and she meets this man and she knows him because he's the man from her childhood, but he has never met her yet. So she's running to introduce herself and she's so excited to see him, but he's meeting her for the first time because it's his older self that has traveled back in time. So it's, let's say, him at 40 that has traveled back through time to meet his wife, but him at 20 has never had that experience yet. But her at 20 has already spent her entire childhood knowing him. I'm watching your face as I'm saying this, and you're like, what? But I've had this experience many times as a past life regressionist, where when clients come to us for a past life regression, they tend to have one experience, right? They do one beautiful past life session and then they go home and they integrate this. And sometimes that's the only experience they're ever going to have with past life work. But for people like us, and we're in this work, we've had many more than just one past life journey. We've visited many of our past lives. Know that this is not our first time on Earth, that in fact we've been here many times before and we'll probably be here many times more. And because I've had the privilege of experiencing many lifetimes, something that I noticed was I wasn't always the same, let's call it spiritual age in every one of my lifetimes. So there was a lifetime experienced, I want to say thousands of years ago. It felt close to 3,000 years ago in what I feel, because I don't know exactly, but it felt very much like Scotland, like ancient Scotland, around that place in the world. And I felt very old. I felt very ancient. When I was living in that lifetime, I felt very wise. Even though I was a child, my soul felt old. My soul felt weary. And then there was another lifetime that I visited. That was probably somewhere in the 15 to 1700s. For people who don't really know a lot about past life experiences, it's not always easy to pinpoint the date. For us, we live very much according to time and calendar dates. So we always know. We know what day of the year it is, what time of the day it is. But if you lived in a medieval society, you don't necessarily know the year or the date, the exact date. So sometimes when you go back past, you have a sense of where you might be in the world or what time period it would be, but you don't know the year. So anywhere between the years of 15 to 1700, but I felt very light. I felt very young. I did not feel wise. You could tell I was still the same essence, like it was still the same soul having this endless journey, but I felt like I was probably a lot younger, if young is even a term that we can ascribe to souls, but I felt like I was a lot earlier in my experience of having come down onto the world. And I was curious about that. So I did some digging, and the what I came up was ultimately souls are limitless wisdom, because as souls we come from a higher consciousness that already we know everything. We don't come down to earth to answer questions because we already have the answers up there in spirit. We come down to earth to experience questions, because when we're in spirit world, there are no questions, there are only answers. And part of the journey, part of the experience that we come here for is to understand all of life. And part of life, a big part of what makes us human, is having questions. So our soul journey is about, okay, what's the next question that my soul would like to ask? So it makes a lot of sense that if I had a question about, say, learning forgiveness, right? Or so maybe my first lifetime could have been the Holocaust, where I was going to go through genocide as a Jewish girl or Jewish member of the Jewish nation, and have to just really accept that very heavy fate and come with a higher consciousness of forgiveness for world events. And then maybe my second lifetime, my second journey would be wanting to understand nature and natural medicines and being one with the natural world. And maybe I would need to go much further back in time to a time when that was real. Because if I was born in 2023, I don't know if I would have gotten that particular soul experience. So I think that whales are ready for a new question. When they're ready for a new experience, they choose a life and a time that can give them the experience that they're asking for. And I don't think that souls need to have these experiences in the order that we live them in on Earth. Does that make sense?
Yes and no. I mean, I'm in agreement with you. It's just so hard for me to comprehend time being anything other than linear. Because a good example I can give you is there is a past life that I have experienced, through the process of regression. Yet what I was told with regards to this life by, we'll call it guides, although oddly I've been hearing that they don't really like that term.
What do they prefer to be called?
That's still up for debate. So we'll stick with guides for now. I mean, I just would call them buttheads. But sorry, I mean, I know that may be controversial. Because they can be. They can be quite crass. It's odd.
They speak to you in the language that they know you're going to be listening.
I listen to crass. They can be quite vulgar too. I guess I respond well to that as well.
Yeah, I think people tend to, spirit guides are all love and light, and mine is really good at giving me kicks in the butts.
Yeah. Oh man.
It's what works.
Sometimes I want to talk to them because they yell at me. I don't like being yelled at. It's neither here nor there right now also. It's for I'm sorry, that's for season 9 of the show. We'll get there. So what I was told about one of these lives was that I haven't lived it yet. And what was so perplexing to me about that is, one, didn't I just have this experience where I relived it? So if I relived it, wouldn't that suggest that I've already lived it? And two, it comes from a period of time in human history which is very identifiable. Let's just say structures that are still around. So if that's the case, and it hasn't happened yet, how? And I mean, at this point, I kind of submit to, or I'm sorry, not submit, I just surrender to, I don't know. I don't know if I'm ever going to fully know and understand, and maybe I need to be okay with that. But it's always okay to ask the question, why? But that is what's so perplexing to me is how? How was I able to experience it and the rest of the world simultaneously in one form or another when it hasn't, in quotes, happened yet? What you got?
So it hasn't happened yet for you, but who's to say that that doesn't exist? And also, who's to say that history can't be changed? Everything that we're experiencing now, right? Thousands of years of creation has led us to this moment. And so we have everything we need to make the most of this moment. But as soon as we enter into this moment, or to the newest moment, what came before is no longer relevant. Because once a moment has been completed and has been given our ultimate attention and has been, I want to say, brought to perfection, then we start focusing on the new moment and what the new moment entails. So all of history, I don't view it as something concrete that has to stay where it is. It was created to bring me to this moment. And the minute this moment has completed what it needs to do here in creation, then whatever history brought it to fruition has also become complete. And I think that there's a lot of talk today with the idea of quantum consciousness, that there are so many different timelines that are possible. There's a book that's next on my reading list. I actually, just before we came onto this call, I got the notification that it shipped. It's called The Midnight Library.
Oh,
by,
great book.
I think his first name.
It's
yeah. Oh, have you read it?
Matt Haig.
Matt Haig. Yep. Right. So The Midnight Library, I haven't read it yet, but my understanding is that it's about a library full of books of all the lives that you could have lived and led had you made different decisions. So every decision in your life is a turning point, right? So what if you decided A instead of B, and then your life would be completely different? So the Midnight Library is full of all of these books about a person's life and the journeys she could have been on had she made different choices. Then there's a movie called Mr. Nobody. I don't know, Jared Leto, I think, is the main character in that. It is such a head trip. It's about a child who can see the outgrowths of every choice he ever makes. And so the whole movie is just different scenes of lives that he could be living. And the first time you watch it, you're like, I don't understand any of this. Like, what's happening? It's not linear. It's so clear that it's the same characters, but which story is real? After you get to the ending, you're like, oh my God, I gotta watch this again. And then you watch it twice. And after you watched it a second time, you say, oh my God, now I have to watch this again, but a little bit high. And that's what I tell people. You got to watch this 3 times. And so I think this idea of parallel realities or parallel timelines, we are not the first ones to be contemplating this. I think throughout history, I mean, media today is making these thoughts more accessible or talked about. And, science fiction and fantasy are blowing up with these things, but we are not the first people to have come to these ideas or conclusions that there may be other realities happening at once. And I remember years ago, I did this meditation on parallel realities. It was something that I had gotten straight off YouTube. And I was at a very stuck place in my life where I had finished quite a bit of schooling and I didn't really know what my next move should be, like how I should take my schooling and evolve it into the work that I wanted to be doing. And so I did this meditation on what if there was a parallel reality where there was already a version of me doing that, whatever that is. And in this meditation, I saw her. I saw the me living that life. And she was teaching. She was standing in front of a group of women and she was teaching a course on intimacy and sexuality. And I was like, wow, she looks so happy. She looks amazing. I wonder how she did that. And then in the meditation, what I did was I went behind her and I looked over her shoulder at the notes that she had written, her syllabus for the teachings. And I was like, that's crazy. That's amazing. She has basically taken all the information that I have, she's put it into this course content. I came out of that 20-minute meditation and I wrote down all of her notes. And all of a sudden, within a 20-minute meditation, I had downloaded an entire course that is something that I teach till today. I'm getting ready to teach my 5th cohort of this particular subject. And I stole all that information from another version of me who had already been teaching it in another lifetime or another reality. Now we can argue that I would not have been able to do that had I not already had that information and gone through that schooling, right? Sure, of course, this is all living in my subconscious or my unconscious, but she had the structure. I didn't have the structure. She had the flow. And also, it is our unconscious mind or our subconscious mind that doesn't understand time. So who knows? Did I really skip into another reality? Or did I go into a part of my psyche that just doesn't understand time and is already living my future self or my other lifetimes at once? Who knows? I do know that there is this possibility to transcend what we believe is linear time. And we see this a lot also when we take people to a past life and they've had some sort of trauma in this other lifetime, and then we can help them resolve that. And all of a sudden they have a conversation that they didn't have in that other lifetime, but they're able to do it in session. And something in that other lifetime resolves them. And then they come back here and it's changing their current life as well. How do we explain that? Did we really heal something in that other lifetime, or is it just a scar in their psyche? I don't have all the answers. And like I said, I don't think we come to Earth for the answers. I think we come to Earth for experiences. But I've had way too many experiences around time not being what we think it is. So I may not be able to fully quantify it, but I really love living in the mystery of it.
I'm going to work backwards on that. I hear you with regards to what we go and do with people when we take them into a past life and have them heal something. And I do think that there's something malleable about it. But I think it's somewhere else. I think that it is, do I say segregated or secluded universe or reality that doesn't have an effect on anyone other than the person we're helping and maybe a couple people around them in the here and now. Because if we were able to make history malleable in that respect, what would be the ramifications of that action? How would that person be living their life differently if this is something that happened 1,000 years ago? And let's just say that it was someone who made a really bad choice in a past life because let's just say they lost their family or something like that. And as a result of their anger, they led an army and crushed an entire civilization. But when we go back and help them release that anger and say, you can live your life a different way. You don't need to be led by that anger. You can release it and let it go. And they do, and they come back, well, in that respect, if we're going to go by history being malleable through our work, everything may be altered by that person not leading his army to crush another civilization. And then we would see the changes in our world. Now, of course, you got to wonder, well, does the universe shift around us once we as past life regressionists go in and save civilizations by saying, let go of your anger, Mr. Army Man? Probably not, because I remember history being the same from, in my last 37 years to what I learned. Then again, maybe it's altered in my mind as we go back. And I'm like, damn, do I really have that much power? Because that'd be fucking crazy if I could take someone back into past life regression, save an entire civilization just because I forgive you, I release you, I let you go, with a lot of other stuff. I'm going on this little tangent right now because I got a lot to fit in here. But it's all those thoughts of, if a change is happening, is it happening somewhere else and still having an effect here? And have we set another universe on a different trajectory? Or is it just a figment of the imagination that somehow has a placebo effect? And I'll say this, I don't care either way. Well, I care. That's the problem. But you know what? If it is placebo, all right, awesome. If you feel better, that's cool. And I'm never going to say to anyone, I can prove to you definitively that we just changed history through this process and that you are feeling better because you didn't go, pillage an entire civilization and that you have released that. So that's why you're feeling better, as opposed to just, no, I gave you a sugar pill, metaphorically, and now you're feeling lighter. I'm okay with either, because to me, it's the outcome at the end of the day that all that matters. I kind of got pressured speech there a little bit. It was fun. I had fun with that. It was fun because I've been with Fally. I'm like, I gotta keep up somehow. So what you got, Fally?
So I have a few thoughts on this. I think that when we come in as past life regressionists, we're not changing some of the big fundamentals of history. When we work with a client, what we're changing is almost, I don't even know how to describe it, but like one fiber of their being, right? I think that when people do healing, they think healing work is about breakthroughs and monumental movements. And what I have found that, and we touched upon this in our last conversation, the most profound things are the ones that not that they were Cleopatra in another lifetime, right? Or Pharaoh. They were just a farmer leading a simple life. And the movement that we get to help them do is kind of like align one fiber of their being. And really the slow movements that we make that have the longest and most lasting effects. So I've never worked with a client who was like Hitler in another lifetime, where we were Hitler's life, childhood wounding, and then we negated the Holocaust. And a lot of science fiction, if you've gone down the rabbit hole of science fiction, there's actually a limited series that came out on Netflix called Bodies. It's 8 episodes and it's time travel related. And I'm not going to talk about the series, and I don't want to give away the ending for anybody. It's worth watching.
Good, because my dad just recommended it to me and I haven't watched it yet.
No way. Okay, so it's a sign. So the ending is not what you think. Like, even when you get your happily ever after, if that's what you think it is, there's always something. There's always something. And I think that there are certain monumental events that were always meant to happen, right? Because, and I'll tell you about this in a moment, but I think when we work with clients, we're never changing monumental events. We're more aligning their personal trajectory through spirit, through what their soul came here to learn. And they're usually much smaller. Now, with regards to those people, the people who destroyed civilizations, when I was in training, actually, so I was really just starting out in this path, this line of work, and our teacher was modeling, I guess, past life on one of the people in the class. So we were all gathered around and watching this demo session. And the person being demoed, being hypnotized, was one of the gentlest, kindest, aligned people that I had ever met in my life up to that point. Somebody who had definitely had some sort of journey, had been born this way, had really worked on themselves to get to this place, but such a precious soul. And there was no question that this was a very highly evolved human. And when the session progressed, this person was taken to a lifetime where he was literally an animal. I'm not kidding. He was part of an Indian tribe, a Native American tribe that was slaughtering people. And his tribe was afraid of him. He used to slaughter with abandon. I mean, the Indians had their way of fighting back against the Europeans and warring clans and tribes, but he was ruthless. He was bloodthirsty. He delighted in scalping people and wore people's scalps as a trophy. And as this man is in this past regression, he is weeping. It is so hard for him to speak about this lifetime that he lived. And at the end of the lifetime, he was so broken. And all he wanted to know when his guides came after the lifetime, collect him, was why? Why did I have to live this lifetime? This is so painful. This is so, And this is so not me. And he was saying, he says, I felt myself trapped in this person's mind. He says, I just for the first time had this awareness that your brain is not your soul. When a soul comes down onto the earth, and for those of us who facilitate womb sessions, when we take people back to the pregnancy, to the womb, one of the questions we will ask clients is, oh, when you try on this body that you're about to be born into, how does this body feel? Right? So we'll tell them, like, can you wiggle your fingers? Can you wiggle those? How does this new body feel? And we'll ask another question. How is this body similar or different to other bodies you may have worn? And people will comment. For me, on my body in the womb, I was like, it's a good body. I was very like nonchalant about it. I was like, it works. It's good. And when I was this different than other bodies, I was like, it's very small. And I was laughing about it. So you guys don't see me because I'm on audio, but I'm really small. I'm not quite 5'2", so I'm really, and I'm very petite and I'm tiny. I'm not quite 100 pounds either. And that was a point of such hilarity when I was in the womb. Like, this body is so tiny. This body is so tiny. And laughing about how this body's a girl. Now I've been a woman other times before, but I was very humorous about why I chose to come down as a woman because of the work that I was going to do. And it was going to be very subversive and kind of from the inside. And then asked about, how do you feel about this brain? I actually had a moment of, this is not fair. And I was trying to express myself in this womb session saying, this brain is like a supercomputer. Why would you give a body like that a brain like this? This brain, there's no way this body can keep up with this brain, or this brain can download fast enough for this body. Like, and that has been one of my struggles, that I burn myself out very quickly because my brain works so fast, and there's no way that this tiny body can keep up. And that was part of my lessons down here on Earth. Again, how to slow down time. That's literally one of my lessons. So it's so you chose this question, because that has been my lessons, how to slow down physical time so that I can accomplish more mentally. Anyway, going back to this guy in the session, so this was the first time I had ever heard someone say this, that the brain and the body are not the soul, garments for the soul. And I'm an Orthodox Jew, and I'm a Hasidic Orthodox Jew, and this is one of the Hasidic teachings as well, that your brain and body are not you. They are just garments that through which you express yourself here. So when he was talking to his spirit guides, the information that came was that his soul was a healer soul. And all his soul had ever worked with were victims who needed healing. And what he never understood was how crimes are perpetrated. He never understood what it means to be a perpetrator. And so one of his lessons for the lifetime was, I want to come in and I want to understand violence and I want to understand perpetration energy. So he was put into the body and mind of a psychopath, of a criminal, and his soul had very little autonomy. His soul had very little agency. And that's what he described after his life was over, that he felt like his soul was just stuck watching through the eyes of this criminal, living inside the prison of this man's mind as he was murdering and scalping and pillaging. And it was an important lesson for me, because as past life regressionists, one of the things you think you can do is help people change, or change history, or change the past, or change their timeline. And then it's very sobering to understand that there are certain things that are fixed, right? There are certain world events or even personal events that need to happen, that we don't always get choices on. So the advent of a lot of people saying like, oh, cancer is when there is some emotionally not aligned in your body or in your emotions or in your psyche. And then like you can heal your symptoms by healing your emotional symptoms. And that's wonderful. And I'm a big believer in that. But then sometimes you have kids with cancer. So you have an infant with cancer. What do you think the infant has done to generate this dis-ease inside of themselves? But maybe their soul chose this. Maybe there are certain things that we don't get to change because they're part of the framework for how we come down here to experience life. Now, the last piece I was going to say about, do we actually have the potential to change history? So I think that there's a yes and a no factor. So like I said, I think we do get to change certain fibers, individual fibers of history. We don't get to change larger things that may have been predestined by higher knowledge that understands that's maybe above time. But I also think that anytime someone wants to change history, there needs to be a critical mass. So I think if we had 1,000 people time traveling, let's say it's with past life regression, or 1,000,000 people doing that, and we helped 1,000,000 people kind of reframe a fiber of their being, maybe we would experience a time glitch. Maybe we would wake up one morning and history would be different. Would we know? I don't know that we would necessarily know, because I think our brains would be reshaped by that. But I think that that's the dichotomy that we're working with. I think that on some level we do get to change history, but on another level we can't change world history unless there's a critical mass of people making that happen.
I mean, I know our episodes usually go on for a long time, but I think that that's a great place to end today. Because I mean, we're going to need to pick that one up again, because there's so much. I mean, as always, there's so much to pick apart in a good way with Fally. Like I just, my brain loves these conversations.
Thank you.
I want to play a game with you that I've started on the podcast. And in this bag here, I have 4 different periods of time. And I like to maintain the integrity of the game. So you see I'm shuffling the bag, pulling my hand out. So you see I'm not holding on to any one. Shuffling around, pulling my hand out again. And now I'm going to pull one of these notes out. So Fally, how have you grown in the last year?
Ooh, that's a big one. In the last year. So 1 year ago this week, I'm teaching my first ever hypnotherapy facilitation training. And that was a culmination of so many years of work getting ready to not just work with clients, but bring my work out into the world with more teachers, more facilitators, more colleagues doing this work. And it up-leveled my life in a whole new way, because it really taught me that the work that we do is not just skills-based, it's really relational. You are the vibration, you are the frequency. And for me, this entire last year, on one hand, I've been celebrating a lot of milestones, a lot of new things that I got to do and achieve. But the more I've been able to achieve, the more it keeps coming back. But all of this started from a place of being, and all of your achievements are actually fueled by who you are as a being, honestly, doing nothing. And so a lot of the growth that I've had to come to, and I'm not quite there yet, it's still something that I'm struggling with, was, am I safe or am I okay just being? And it's really hard, because when you've reached many milestones or many accomplishments, there's an addiction. You just want more. And you're like, well, I accomplished this and I accomplished this. And then you start looking at your next year and you're like, okay, if I accomplished this last year, I gotta outdo myself next year. And this year has actually been a very different kind of year for me. I'm actually trying to do less now than I've ever done before, because I feel like the greatest gift that I can give myself and whoever I touch and whatever comes next is the gift of learning how to just be. So my intention for this year, now that 1 year has passed since I taught that training, is I still want to teach and I want to do the work that I do. But my intention for this year is to have at least one amazing conversation each week for 1 year. So this is my conversation for the week. You are one of them. And I obviously want to sit down and I want to journal about what the conversation experience was like for me, what I learned, what I liked, what I didn't like. Did my conversation live up to expectations? Because I feel, and this comes back to the work that we do, the deepest moments in a person's lifetime tend to not be accomplishment based. In all of the years taking people back to past lives, there are a few people that lived and died with this one amazing accomplishment, right? Usually, if you ask somebody what the highlight of a lifetime was for them, it was action. It was a moment of presence. And they could have lived a lifetime that was 80 years. But the story that they choose to tell you is about this one person that they like locked eyes with, you know? And I realized I want more of that. So that's what this year has changed for me. I think I reached 1 year ago, I reached a pinnacle in my life where, wow, everything I worked for came true. I was at the highest point of what I had considered self-actualization. And when I was at the highest point of my pyramid, so to speak, I was left with this feeling of, where do I go from here? Is this the story I'm going to be telling about my life? And I have a bunch of life left to live. And I realized I need to make more eye contact with people. I need to have more amazing conversations that light me up. And here I am.
Well, I'm honored to be a part of the one conversation a week. And as always, it's always just such a pleasure to talk to you. And
Thank you.
the way that you present things and make me look at the world through a different lens is just, it's something else. It's a gift that you have. So I want to thank you for helping me step outside some of my rigidness and open up a little bit. So thank you for that, Fally.
Thank you. And I do have to say that I did make that decision about having more conscious conversations after our last conversation. I came away from our last conversation so lit up. And my friends were commenting to me. They said, "What did you do today? You are so happy. You are so bouncy." And I said, "I had the most amazing conversation." And then I realized, wow, I really need to do more, whether they're podcasts or just going out for coffee with friends. So you actually helped spark that. So thank you.
That means a lot to me. Thank you. With that, I do want to ask you one more question. What does home mean to you?
Oh, that's I may have shared this with you before, not on our conversation, maybe on our first one. I don't remember, so I may be repeating myself. I'm sorry in advance if I do, but I think I've been looking for that my entire life. I think that probably that fuels a lot of the work that I do. I've never really felt quite at home, whether it was in my body or in my life, my surroundings, my world. I always felt a little bit like an outsider when people do things that are considered very normal, right? Like going out to restaurants, and I have a really hard time. I can't eat when there are other people talking, where there's music playing. And then I look at things that other people find enjoyable and I'm like, am I the only one who's just not getting it? I really very much feel like an outsider. But I think that on some level that's made me very successful in my work, because I really identify with people who feel the same way. And I've learned so many different tools over my life and learned how to implement them and share them with others. But if you ask me personally how I define that, so years ago, I was a teacher's assistant in a hypnosis training, and part of the requirements for the students to get through this program was that obviously they had to do certain levels of practicums. And then one of the practicums that they had to do was they had to hypnotize one of the teachers, because we needed to experience their level of skill. So I was being hypnotized by one of the students. And one of the intentions for the session that I set was, take me home. I want to know where I come from. I've never really felt at home and I want to know. So she took me on this soul experience, and we were going up through the spirit world, and we were seeking this place called home. And finally I reached this, it felt like a bar of light, like a rainbow of light in the sky. It wasn't a rainbow, but it was an arc of light in the middle of the galaxy. And I said, well, that's as far as I can go. And she says, why can't you go further? I said, because if I would, I can't go there, and it's blocked. I can't go beyond that. And she says, who put this arc of light in the sky that you can't go beyond? And I said, it was me. I did. My soul did that. And she says, why would your soul do that? And I said, because my soul knew that I was going to ask this question. And my soul knew that I wanted to have this journey. And my soul knew that if I went beyond this point, I would never come back. And so in order for me to finish my infinite life on this earth, I can't go beyond that point. And so she asked me to define what that point is. And I said, if I allow myself to be in this point of light, what unfolds for me is a garden. And she says, what is this garden? How would you describe it? I said, it's the garden of names. And this is the place where we give back our name. And she said, what does that mean for you? So I told her, before me as a soul down to this earth, we were all one. We were just all oneness. There was no me, there was no you. We were just one. And in order to come down onto this earth, we had to separate. I had to become me, and you had to become you. So this little piece of light that was me, how did we contain one piece of light and just give it the shape of Fally? So we gave it a name. And the minute we gave it these letters, the minute we gave it this name, Fally, this little piece of light, became separate from Daniel. And so I said, this garden is the highest place that I go while I'm still incarnate, because to go beyond this means I have to give up my name, to give up what makes me separate. And when we can go back to the oneness of all beings. But I actually left that session very moved, very sad. There was a tremendous amount of grief, but also that grief settled in me in a very, like, it really landed. It wasn't this hysterical grief. It was almost this deep vibration of settled grief that I deeply understood, that maybe I will never fully experience what it means to come home in this incarnate life. And that's also okay.
I mean, as always, it's never just four walls and a roof with Fally.
Yeah. No, because you know what? If this podcast we discuss why time is not real, next podcast we'll have to discuss why space is not either.
That will be very appropriate for the next one that we do. I'll fill you in a little bit after we finish recording. But
sounds great.
Thank you for all of this. Just thank you. Where can everyone reach you?
I have a website. So it is fallyklein.com, spelled F as in Frank, ALLYKLEIN. And there's not much on you get to see a little bit about who I am on the website, but it's just like my landing page on the internet. There's a part of me that prefers not to be found while I'm out exploring the universes, but if you'd like to follow, you're more than welcome.
So everyone go check it out, and just stay tuned for Fally's 4th episode that she'll be doing on Timeless Spirituality. Date TBD, but we'll figure that out because it's going to happen. It's going to happen. So, yay.
Thank you.
Fellow time travelers, your journey through time awaits you. Just want to thank you guys so much for listening to today's episode. And if you're interested in discovering who, when, and where you have been throughout time, and you'd like to book a session with me, just go ahead and send me a message on Instagram at The Past Life Regressionist, or you can reach me through my website, yourpastliferegressionist.com.
Hey, time traveler. Are you trying to learn your birth chart and you're struggling through all those confusing layers of signs, houses, planets, degrees, aspects? I have a 4-level self-paced course that makes this process so much clearer. Hi, I'm Danny. I'm that witch next door. I'm an instructor and mentor for folks like you that are trying to learn all of this trendy new astrological information for themselves and their own lives. Each level of my course is specifically designed to dive deep into the chart and help make sense of all those different parts and pieces. I developed this course to directly improve all the problems that I personally encountered on my journey to learning my own birth chart so that you don't have to. All of the information is presented in a way that is digestible and set up to promote the most effective retention and set you up for real success. By the end of our last level, you'll be ready to practice interpreting the transits and the aspects for yourself. You can visit thatwitchnextdoor.com/astrology for more information and to order yours today. You can also use code TIME to learn for a 10% discount off of your bundle today. This is my way of saying thank you so much for being part of the Timeless Spirituality community. I enjoy working with all of you so much that listen to me over on That Witch podcast. So don't forget, if you're struggling to learn your birth chart, you want to finally make sense of all of this, visit thatwitchnextdoor.com/astrology and use code TIME to learn for 10% off at checkout. Thank you so much, time traveler. Thank you, Daniel, the past life regressionist. And I'll see you all in class.